This is Unit 7A, Part 1. Unit 7A is on the male reproductive system, and Unit 7B is on the female reproductive system. The first two slides that we're going to look at cover both male and female, but in this 7A. But then after that, it's all male. Reproductive system. The primary organs are the gonads, which are the testes in the males, and ovaries in females. Now these gonads produce sexual reproductive cells, or sex cells, and those cells are called gametes, but they also have a function as glandular function. They secrete sex hormones. Now the sex hormones are androgens and estrogens and progesterone. The androgens are classically viewed as male sex hormones, but women also have androgens. Women also have testosterone. In females, testosterone is much lower than in males and is involved. It has an important role in driving libido in females. So, it's not 100% that androgens are male and the others are female. In fact, for females, the main sex hormones are estrogen and progesterone. There's also estradiol, but estradiol is also present in males and has a role in sexual reproduction in males. There are also in the reproductive systems in both male and female ducts and glands and external genitalia. Essentially, you could look at the both male and female reproductive organ system as the gonads, where the reproductive cells or gametes are produced, and then a series of ducts that eventually lead to the outside, with some glands that secrete material into the duct system. And that's how we'll describe it, starting at the gonads and going forward downstream towards the exit point to the outside. Okay. These sex hormones, of course, play a role in development and function of the reproductive organs and in sexual behavior and sex drive or libido, and also the growth and development of other organs besides just sexual reproductive organs. So other organs and tissues outside of that in other systems are also influenced by sex hormones. For example, those hormones do play a role in development of muscle mass. Oh, and testosterone also is a driver of drives forward erythropoiesis. So there's somewhat more erythropoiesis occurring in males than females, and therefore males have a higher hematocrit. Okay, so let's start in with the male, strictly speaking about just the male reproductive system. The male gonads are testes or testicles, and they produce sperm, and they are held within the scrotum. The sperm get, as I said before, the reproductive cells, in this case sperm are the gametes, they get delivered to the exterior by traveling through a fairly complex system of ducts. Once they leave the testes, they go into the epididymis, and then they're into the ductus deferens, then the ejaculatory duct, and then the urethra, and then out. The accessory sexual organs or sex glands in the male, which contribute to the fluid volume of the semen that contains the sperm, include seminal vesicles. There's two, one prostate gland and two bulbourethral glands. All of these, as I said, empty their secretions into the ducts, and that occurs during ejaculation of the semen. Okay, so here we see a diagram. This is a mid-sagittal section, lateral view of a mid-sagittal section. And you can see if we start here, right here at the testis, testes is plural, testis is singular, the site of production of the gametes, the sperm cells, and they enter up here into the epididymis and travel down, and then that's the end of the epididymis, and they enter into the vas deferens. I'm sorry, that's the older term for the more recent term is ductus deferens. Let's put it here. So, I'm sorry. So there's the testis. Remember, the same structures are on the other side as well of the ones I'm describing right now. And the sperm are produced, and they go into the epididymis, and then they go into the ductus deferens, this structure right here. Okay, the ductus deferens, another term for it is the vas deferens. And the same occurs, is present on the opposite side, parallels, mirror image structures. So the ductus deferens arches up over the bladder, as you can see, and then at its end it widens out, and at that point it's called the ampulla. Still part of the ductus deferens, but it's called the ampulla. All of this, by the way, is on the next few slides written out, but I'm just going through it now, and then we'll review it again. This structure here is the seminal vesicle. Again, there's another one on the other side. Similarly, it empties its secretions into and joining to the ductus deferens, and at that point the ductular system is called the ejaculatory duct. So that region is the ejaculatory duct. This is the bladder up here. All of this is the bladder. All of this here is the bladder, and it empties down through here. And so this part here now is called the prostatic urethra. So the ejaculatory duct empties into the prostatic urethra. There's one urethra draining one bladder, obviously. And there's a single organ, accessory organ, sexual organ called the prostate, which completely surrounds the urethra. Here, I'll outline it for you. That structure is the prostate. Okay, so then the membranous urethra, I'm sorry, did I say the prostatic urethra, let's get rid of that. The prostatic urethra here, the area of the urethra inside the prostate, then becomes the membranous urethra, just that small area, and then it becomes the spongy or penile urethra, going all the way to the end of the penis. This gland here is the bulbourethral gland in here. Maybe I'll use another color just to highlight it. I don't know which one. Here, this area here, that's the bulbourethral gland, and it empties into the spongy urethra. Let's get rid of some of this highlighting now that you've seen what I'm talking about. Okay. All right, so let's go through that in, I guess, a little bit more detail as we go on. The testes are enclosed inside the scrotum. The scrotum is a sac of skin with some layers of connective tissue called fascia. That's a general term for layers of connective tissue. They have a fascia underneath the skin. It hangs outside of the abdominal pelvic cavity, and it's positioned at the base or root of the penis. The two testicles are separated by a septum, a midline septum. And this kind of external positioning of the testes allows them to be at a lower temperature than the core body temperature. They're at least 3 degrees centigrade lower. The lower temperature is quite important for normal normal sperm production, sperm that can fertilize an egg. Otherwise, if the temperature were higher, you can get infertile sperm production or infertility. The temperature in the scrotum is kept constant at 3 degrees lower than the normal core body temperature by the action of two different sets of muscle, the dartus muscle, which is a smooth muscle, involuntary muscle layer just underneath the scrotal skin, which can contract and therefore wrinkle the scrotal skin and move the testes closer to the body, and therefore if it's colder, then they'll move closer to the body so that they can maintain that, just 3 degrees lower. And the cremaster muscle, or muscles, which are attached, these are skeletal muscles or skeletal muscles that can elevate the testes up within the scrotum. And here you see the cremaster muscle, which extends up like that. All this muscle tissue is the cremaster, which can sort of withdraw or pull up the testes. That's skeletal muscle. And the dartus, where is the dart? Here. The dartus muscle, which is just underneath the layer of skin in the scrotum, and that's acting involuntarily, and it contracts and relaxes to maintain the appropriate body, a relative temperature to the body, minus 3 degrees lower than core body temperature. Okay, the testes themselves are the site of production of the sperm. And when you look at the testes, it's this organ here. Okay. And it's divided into 250 to 300 lobules. There are inside the testes there are septa. There are several septa. Each of these here is this is a septum, a single septum. Okay, so there are a number of different septa, and each septa or septum contains 250 to 300 lobules. And inside the lobules are 1 to 4 seminiferous tubules. The seminiferous tubules are the site of production of the sperm. And these seminiferous tubules will all converge down here to one structure. They're all converging or emptying down into this structure called the rete testes. Okay, the rete testes. Yes, it says tubulus rectus, but let's call it the. I'm sorry. Just a second. Okay, let's just back off that a little bit. Yeah. So each of these, each of the seminiferous tubules in the lobule empty into the rete testis. It's here, the rete testis. Okay, which is this structure right here. So they're all emptying into that tubular structure. And the rete testis then leaves the testes and empties into this area here, which is all epididymis. Let's go to the next slide. So we have the septa, which is a wall. There's several septa, separate walls dividing the tubular system in the or the tubular network. There are these walls dividing the a septum is a wall. So you have these walls dividing the seminiferous tubules. You have these you have these walls dividing the lobules that contain the seminiferous tubules, and those seminiferous tubules all empty out into the rete testis here, and then the rete testis leave the testis and they go out via the efferent ductule and they go into the epididymis. I wouldn't worry about that term efferent ductule. That seminiferous tubules are emptying out to the rete testis and then out of the testes into the epididymis. And all of this structure, let me highlight it, all of this structure here is epididymis. Okay, all here, all of this structure. So it's on the posterior. Here's the obviously the penis here, and the epididymis is on the posterior aspect and top of the each testis. Okay. Now I want to just emphasize to you that in these tubules in the testis, these seminiferous tubules, they are jammed together quite tightly, but in the space just outside of them are a particular kind of cell called interstitial cells, and those interstitial cells just outside of the seminiferous tubules are the cells that produce the androgens or male sex hormones in the testis, in the male testis, in the male. There is a blood supply, testicular arteries, testicular veins, no shock there. And the whole structure is held by a spermatic cord. And you'll see that a diagram of that on the following slide. The spermatic cord is made up of nerve fibers, both sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve fibers of the autonomic nervous system, right? There's blood vessels and there's also lymphatics, and what's glaringly missing here is the fact that the vas deferens, or ductus deferens, goes up that spermatic cord. Okay, so here you see this is the spermatic cord here, this whole structure here. Okay, going up and away from the, traveling up and away from the scrotum. There are blood vessels, as I said, and nerves, and the ductus deferens also goes up here, up that spermatic cord. Okay, now the penis, which is part of the external genitalia, that's the reproductive organ in terms of copulation, sexual intercourse. It's designed to deliver sperm into the female reproductive tract, the vagina. It consists of a structure that's attached at the root and has a free shaft ending in what's called the glans penis. Now the end of the penis is covered with a cuff of skin, which is called the foreskin. Another term for it is the prepuce. This structure in many societies and different religious groups and different societies, some more than others, is often cut off just after birth. That procedure is called a circumcision. The surgical removal has some religious significance, or with certain religious groups or certain cultures, is a traditional procedure, but it also is a procedure that was considered considered to be promoting cleanliness, and in fact has shown more recently to significantly reduce the risk of contracting HIV infection. Now, the penis itself has a sort of an unusual structure in terms of the fact that it has erectile tissue in it. This erectile tissue is, well, it also, of course, contains the spongy urethra right down the middle here. I don't know if you can see the highlighter here. Right down the, let's go for this. That'll be completely clear. Right down the middle is the spongy urethra, but also it contains this network of spongy material or tissue. It's a network of connective tissue, and it has some smooth muscle in it, but mostly it has space, vascular spaces, sinuses, vascular sinuses or vascular spaces. The this is here is a what you see here in this view is a superior view looking down on the penis, and here is a cross section below there. That's a cross section through the penis. So you're seeing at the bottom there, you're seeing the cross section of the cylindrical shaped spongy connective tissue. The two on the superior surface are called the corpora callosa. Did I say callosa? Corpora cavernosa. Here. So there's two of them. These two cylinders. This is shown in cross section, so we're talking about this structure here and here. And the corpus cavernosa, which is on the bottom surface of the penis. The corpus spongiosum in the bottom here surrounds the spongy urethra, but it also expands out at the end of the penis to form the glands of the penis, and also at the base to form the base of the penis, or the bulb of the penis. Okay, so the glans penis and the bulb of the penis is formed by the corpora cavernosa. Okay, the reason should be obvious, I would hope, why this is has a lot of vascular space, because those spaces fill with blood during erection and allow the tissue to be erectile. Okay. Okay, the epididymis, from where the seminiferous, into which the seminiferous tubules empty their sperm cells that they produce, has these structures. They're called, I wouldn't worry about the term, but they're called stereocilia, but they have these structures that allow them to absorb any excess fluid and help to maintain the sperm by passing nutrients to them. As the sperm cells enter into the epididymis, they are non-motile, and it's there that they mature to become motile. That epididymis goes on, and I'll point to where it happens. It ends here at the base here, and then it goes into, that's the point where it ends right there, and then it goes into the ductus deferens, which travels up here, up the spermatic cord and over the top of the bladder, and the very end of it is this enlarged area called the ampulla. That's the ductus deferens. So this structure helps move sperm cells along from the epididymis to the urethra, this whole ductus deferens. In a surgical procedure, simple surgical procedure, to sterilize males, it's the ductus deferens that gets cut and tied or ligated, closed, and that procedure is called a vasectomy. It is nearly 100% is a bit of a problem. Occasionally it fails, not very often, quite rare, but has been known to fail, particularly if a person has sex within, I think it's the first 4 weeks or month after the procedure. So because there could still be some residual sperm cells in there, but is it a month or 2 weeks? I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. Vasectomy is the procedure to cut and tie off the ductus deferens to sterilize a male. Male sexual function is completely normal, but they're sterile. And it is, yes, if there is a question about whether it's reversible, yes, it is reversible. It requires a microsurgical vascular procedure to rejoin it. Not vascular, microsurgical procedure to rejoin it. Okay, so once you get to the urethra, which is here, once at the point at which the ductus deferens joins here with the seminal vesicle right in there, then the duct is then called, I'll get rid of this, then from that point forward the duct is called the ejaculatory duct. So that stretch there is the ejaculatory duct, and then that joins with the urethra coming down from the bladder. Okay, so this area of the urethra is called the spongy bladder. The prostatic urethra. There are 3 regions or sections to the urethra. There's the prostatic urethra. There is the membranous urethra, which is this section here, just a short section there. And then after that is the spongy or penile urethra, which is this 3rd section here all the way to the end of the penis. I can see it much better here, obviously. So here we have, let's just go through it from the testis, starting at the testis. In here, there are the seminiferous tubules in this. Whoa, it's hard to control that. I think I'll go with this. Seminiferous tubules are all inside here in the testis, and they empty up through the retestis into the epididymis. All of this is the epididymis, and then from there the sperm cells become motile in the epididymis, and then it goes into the, starting here through all this, the ductus deferens, going up the spermatic cord, arching over the bladder here, and then forming into a widening called the ampulla, and then joining with the duct coming from the seminal vesicle on this side to form the ejaculatory duct, and then joining in with the ejaculatory duct joins into the urethra. This is the prostatic urethra, the membranous urethra, and then the spongy or penile urethra right there. Okay. Now, as I said, you do have accessory glands, the seminal vesicles, the prostate, the bulbourethral glands. Seminal vesicles are on each side, and they connect to each of the ejaculatory ducts on each side. The two ejaculatory ducts, the two ejaculatory ducts go on to drain into the prostatic urethra. Secretions from the seminal vesicles together form about 60% of the end volume of the semen, the fluid material that gets ejected in the ejaculate. The semen is a thick, viscous, alkaline fluid. It contains a number of different components besides just sperm cells and the secretions. It's themselves, the semen from the 60% volume of the semen from the seminal vesicles contains fructose, ascorbic acid, coagulating enzyme, and some prostaglandins. This fluid mix of sperm and seminal fluid occurs in the ejaculatory duct and then enter into the prostatic duct during ejaculation. There is also the prostate, which is a donut round-shaped gland that encircles the base of encircles the urethra at the base of the bladder. It is a milky, slightly acidic fluid containing citrate, some enzymes, and a molecule called PSA, or prostate-specific antigen. This used to be used as a monitor to indicate if a person has a enlarged prostate, but it's no longer typically screened for because it's not considered to be a particularly good indicator of whether there may or may not be cancer of the prostate. Most men, the vast majority of men after 60 have enlarged prostates, and if a man lives into his 70s or 80s, it's 100% or close on to 100% have enlarged prostates. Some, not the minority, do go on to form a tumor, but otherwise it's just increased number of cells, hyperplasia. This fluid coming from the prostate accounts for about 1/3, 33% of the semen volume. It plays an important role in activation of the sperm, and it is added to the semen during ejaculation by being ejected into the prostatic urethra and joining up with the secretions of the seminal vesicles coming from the ejaculatory duct and the sperm that are also coming through the ejaculatory duct. Okay, so here we see the seminal vesicles that contribute to the volume of the semen, 60%, and then there's the prostate that contributes at 1/3, that's 33%, that's 93%. There's also on each side bulbourethral organ shown there, gland, not organ, bulbourethral gland that empties into the spongy or penile urethra. This, an old name for it is Cowper's gland, but this is the better term, bulbourethral glands. These are pea-sized glands, small glands just below the prostate. They form or produce a thick, clear alkaline mucus. The alkaline mucus, the purpose of the alkaline mucus is that they secrete out into the urethra, is that it helps to neutralize any remaining the presence of any urine that might be still present in the urethra, because urine is acidic, and that would affect negatively affect the sperm cells. So this helps to neutralize if there's any acidic urine. Okay, the secretion of the bulbourethral gland. So in the end, semen is a mix of sperm cells, seminal fluid from the seminal vesicles, prostatic fluid from the prostate, and bulbourethral mucus, secreted mucus. It is a opaque, milky white, sticky mixture of the secretions and the reproductive gametes, the sperm cells. It acts as a transport medium. It also provides nutrition to the cells because it contains fructose, and it can protect and activate the sperm. It helps their movement. So with ejaculation into the vagina, there's requirement for movement of sperm cells through and up, quite far up into the female reproductive tract. Most fertilization of eggs most of the time occurs in the what are they called? Does not occur in the cervix. I'm sorry, it does not occur in the uterus, but beyond the uterus, in the what used to be called fallopian tubes, but has a more modern name which escapes me obviously at the moment, but we'll get to that. So the point is that the sperm cells have to travel quite far up. There is in semen prostaglandin. It helps to decrease the viscosity of the mucus secretions of the cervix. The cervix is the very end of the uterus that projects into the vaginal canal. Okay, it also triggers, prostaglandin not only decreases mucus viscosity in the female reproductive tract, but also will trigger a reverse peristalsis of the uterus, which are waves of contraction of the smooth muscle of the uterine walls to help movement of sperm up through the female reproductive tract. The semen contains a hormone relaxin that helps sperm motility. It is, in general, relatively alkaline, again helping neutralize the acid environment in the male urethra and also in the vagina. I think I could leave, I keep forgetting to leave out female. Obviously it's female in the vagina. Also, you know, I'm not going to hold you to that this kind of these terms here. I'm going to hold you to remember them. It also contains a clotting factor that helps to coagulate the semen, so that initially the semen is quite a gel-like or viscous, but soon after that there's fibrinolysin, very similar, extremely similar to what you have in fibrinolysis or liquefaction of clot, so that the clotting factors and the lysis of that are very similar to the clotting cascade in the blood plasma, and this liquefies the sticky mass after it's soon after it gets ejected. Average volume of ejaculate is about 2 to 5 mils, and the ejaculate contains a huge, giant number of sperm cells. You know, 100 million. What's this? 90 million plus or minus 40. Okay, let's talk about the male sexual response, erection. You know, the initial parts, all the initial parts of the male sexual response are driven by the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic arm or division of the autonomic nervous system. So erection or enlargement, stiffening of the penis is due to the engorgement of that spongy tissue in the penis, the corpora cavernosa and the corpus spongiosum. During sexual arousal, it's a parasympathetic reflex, and there's a parasympathetic reflex which triggers release of nitric oxide, and that acts to cause vasodilation of the arterioles that supply blood to that erectile tissue. So you have vasodilation, you have an increased flow into the tissue, and they fill up with blood and become rigid. Because of the expansion of the corpora cavernosa, the two corpora cavernosa, those two cylinders of spongy tissue along the shaft, you get compression of the veins that drain the vasculature of the penis, and therefore the outflow is slowed down significantly. And for that reason, the engorgement, enlargement, swelling of the penis, the erection, can be maintained. The other spongy tissue which surrounds the urethra and forms the glands of the penis, the corpus spongiosum, its function is to help keep the urethra open during ejaculation so that it's an open patent pathway or duct pathway for the ejaculate to emerge from, to come out. Erection is initiated by stimuli, pretty much anything, touch, mechanical, erotic, sounds, smells. The erection can be induced solely by mental activity, emotional, mental activity. Anything can really trigger the person. The idea of dysfunction, inability to get an erection, is called impotence, but more recently, or more popularly, I'd say, erectile dysfunction. So, during sexual excitement, again, an increase in parasympathetic output and erectile tissue filling with blood, penis enlarges, becomes rigid. And ejaculation, in that case, instead of parasympathetic, you get a big surge in sympathetic nervous system output. So it's a sequential sexual act. In the male is the, and in female actually, is the sequential upregulation of parasympathetic followed by a rush of sympathetic output, and it's that rush which is the orgasm. In the ejaculation, with that rush of sympathetic output, increased sympathetic output, the bulbospongiosus muscle contracts. This is the muscle around here, around the root here, wrapped around the base of the penis. And also the epididymis will contract. So you have contraction of this muscle and contraction of the epididymis, and sperm gets expelled up the ductus deferens and out through the urethra as ejaculate. So it's propulsion of semen out of the male duct system. As I told you, it's a question of producing the reproductive cells, addition of some accessory organ secretions, and then ejection out due to sympathetic nervous stimulus. Sympathetic nervous system. It's part of the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic division. The reproductive ducts contract, the accessory organs contract, the epididymis will contract, the bulbospongiosus muscle contracts, they all empty their contents. At the same time, the sphincter muscle at the base of the bladder will contract and thus prevent any urine from being released. The bulbospongiosus muscle is the major muscle that undergoes rapid contractions to eject the semen, and it gets propulsed. You get propulsion of the semen out of the urethra. That's ejaculation. All right, we're going to stop here. This is the end of Unit 7A, Part 1.